Londoners have been buying their food in wholesale markets for longer than white people have lived in America. Now, the main wholesale markets in London are nocturnal and they're trade only. You've probably never seen inside them. However, they're needed to feed the 9 million people that live in London, and we're going to go and see them all. Now, these markets have a rich and gruesome history that's as old as the Tower of London. Some of them have moved a few times, like this one, Old Spitalfields, which has moved to a new site in the east of London. Despite being trade markets, you can actually visit, however, you have to buy in bulk. So we're going to go and have a look, see what food's available, see how much it costs, and see how that compares to the supermarkets. If you want to have something to eat in London, then you've got two choices. Either you make it yourself or you get someone else to make it for you and maybe delivered. If you decide to make it yourself, then you need to go out and buy some food, and you can get that either from a supermarket or you can go to one of the literally thousands of local small independent shops that exist around our capital city. All of these little shops have to get their fresh food from somewhere, and many of them will rely on London's wholesale markets to do so, taking advantage of the amazing bulk prices that are available. You may have heard people say that you need to eat locally and seasonally, but what does that actually mean in a city like London? Well, the food that's available at these wholesale markets changes throughout the year, meaning that the food available to these little shops also changes. These markets reflect the ever-changing seasonality of food, and they'll also indicate when things are running dry too. So we're going to go and check out the City of London's main wholesale markets, and they've got history that stretches back over 1,000 years. Like this one here, Old Billingsgate, which is a site on the bank of the Thames, just a stone's throw from the Tower of London, and people have traded food here since Anglo-Saxon times. First up tonight, we're going to go to Smithfield Meat Market and check out the Victorian architecture. Then we're going to go to New Spitalfields Market, which is fruit, veg and flowers, and that's a modern market that's situated just a little bit outside of the centre. And then we're going to go to Billingsgate's new site, which is down the river at Canary Wharf, and see what fish is available. Now, these are wholesale markets, meaning that everything they sell is in bulk. That's either entire box loads of fish or entire pallet loads of fruit and veg, and they all operate overnight between the hours of midnight and 7 AM, so they're normally open when most of us are asleep. The first market on our tour is Smithfield Market. Now, this sells meat, and its history dates back 900 years to the 12th century. It's on a piece of land that was once known as Smithfield that had a little river running by. It's one of London's now hidden rivers, and people brought livestock here to graze and they started trading. It's also crazy to think that Zone 1 actually just had open grassland. I mean, maybe rents were cheaper then too. Executions were also carried out here, including William Wallace. The site that Smithfield is on was also home to the Bartholomew Fair, an annual event that would go on for up to 2 weeks at a time. However, in the 19th century, it got cancelled and it was labelled as a school of vice. It's obviously now been replaced by bankers who are out on a Thursday evening. In the 14th century, livestock trading was banned within the City of London walls, and this site, which is just outside of the walls, was granted a licence to hold a weekly market. Over the years, the site developed. In 1614, they installed some paving and a drainage system, and some of the local roads around the area reflect what went on at the market. For instance, you have Cow Cross Street, where livestock was traded, and you've got Cock Lane, where chickens were traded. The market that we're visiting today is in the building that was built in 1860 and designed by Sir Horace Jones. It cost £200,000 to build and was designed to feed 3 million people. It's amazing that the same building that was 160 years ago is still being used today. However, it has been announced that Smithfield is going to be moving to Dagenham along with another market we're going to talk about a bit later, so if you do want to go here, put it up your list.
So it's 1:30 in the morning. I actually had a couple of hours sleep, which is nice, and crazily the markets have already been trading for an hour and a half, two of them Smithfields and New Spitalfields, so we're going to get ourselves together and head off to the first one.
Getting to Smithfield Meat Market is incredibly easy because it's right in the centre of town. It's open from midnight to 7 AM from Monday to Friday, and it's right next door to Farringdon Station, as well as being served by plenty of buses. There's also a huge car park with a cool entrance that sits directly underneath the market, and that was only £1.50 to park there overnight. It's also a beautiful place to visit, and you get to see one of those hidden overnight communities of market traders that you really only see if you're awake when most people are asleep. The stunning Victorian architecture combined with hordes of traders and customers spilling out onto the surrounding streets gives it an amazing atmosphere. It's going to move out to Dagenham by 2027, so definitely put it right at the top of your to-do list. Once inside, Smithfield sells every cut of meat that you could imagine, from whole carcasses, fresh slabs of sirloin, piles of cow tongues, huge packs of bacon and sausages, cured meats, chickens, expensive chickens, cheap chickens, dried meats, cheeses, antipasti and even cakes. You can get it all here. The variety of produce available is literally amazing. It's like having an entire community of butchers and market traders living under one roof, which, well, I guess is kind of what it is really. We visited at 1 AM on a Friday morning and the market was quite peaceful inside. The traders were friendly and really happy to chat about their produce and tell me more information about where it comes from. There's a map of the market stalls online too. It's essentially one long walkway along the centre of the buildings. You could easily whiz around here in half an hour or so. If you're looking to buy in bulk, then it is worth scoping out prices at different stalls before you actually purchase. Definitely consider Smithfield with some urgency because of the fact that it's moving out to the new site, and at the moment it really is right in the middle of the city. Literally running around this old car park looking for the machine to pay so we can get out of here and go to the next market. I think we found it. Next up is New Spitalfields Fruit, Veg and Flower Market. Now, London has two fruit, veg and flower markets and both of them have moved out of the centre to their new locations. You've got New Covent Garden and New Spitalfields, and they used to be in Spitalfields and Covent Garden originally. They're both quite similar in terms of what they actually sell, but we're going to look at New Spitalfields because that relates more closely to the City of London, which is where a lot of the history that we're talking about today begins. Spitalfields Market started life in the 13th century when a small market was held in a field next to the church of St Mary Spital. Then in 1682, King Charles II granted John Balch permission to have a market every Thursday and Saturday in Spital Square, just on the edge of the square mile. For the next 200 years, the market continued trading from different stalls and shacks in this area, but then it kind of became quite a deprived area. Yeah, Spitalfields was actually the ghetto at one point. Then in 1876, Robert Horner bought a short lease on the market and began to build the buildings that you can still see in the old Spitalfields area just behind Bishopsgate. In 1920, the City of London gained control of the market and extended those buildings even further. It continued to trade on that site for many years until all the vehicles and deliveries in the area congested the streets too much and it moved out to a massive 31-acre site in Leighton in East London. So we're now on our way to our second market, which is New Spitalfields. Now you might know Old Spitalfields, it's kind of behind the City of London Bishopsgate. Well, they moved it out to Leighton, I don't know, about like 10, 15 years ago. So we're on our way over there now to have a look at some fruit, veg and flowers. When it comes to visiting, then New Spitalfields is a complete pain to get to. The market trades 6 days a week, opening at midnight on Sunday and trading each day until 9 AM. It closes at 9 AM on Saturday for a well-earned break. However, it's based in Leighton in Zone 3 in a fairly industrial part of town. It's a 15-minute walk from the nearest tube station and you could get an Uber or drive there, and to be honest, that is the primary way that people arrive. It's incredibly busy with loads of vans and lorries whizzing around, and it's also very confusing to get in and out. I think you're actually supposed to register for parking before you arrive, but I'm not sure. The barriers wouldn't let me in, and then when I tried to pay and exit at the end, it wouldn't let me out either. However, it's supposed to cost £2 to park. If you're coming to buy food, then you really do need to come in a vehicle. Because this is fruit and veg, everything's loaded in crates or large boxes, and there's not much available in small portions. Only a few things like soft fruits like cherries, strawberries or mangoes. The site itself is 31 acres, it's enormous, it's 3 large warehouses which are primarily populated by forklift trucks. It's not particularly charming, it's a little bit grubby, and you do have to watch out for suicidal fruit that might be on the floor. There are 3 avenues down the middle of each warehouse, and you can walk up and down and see what's available, but a lot of stuff's quite hidden because it's wrapped up in these massive pallets. And you do have to be exceptionally careful. You're supposed to wear a high-vis jacket, and the forklift drivers appear to have aspirations of being the next Lewis Hamilton. There is a vast selection of produce available. You can find every kind of fruit and veg that you could possibly imagine from around the world, and the prices are generally quite good too. However, I was less inclined to buy food here because most of it's bulky and fast perishing, and you can't freeze it easily either. It was also the least engaging to visit because everything's just piled up in boxes and it's not quite as spectacular as Smithfield or the next market we're going to go to. To be honest, I was actually glad to get on to the next one, which was Billingsgate. So for some reason I can't get out of here. We're like trapped. We're supposed to have like paid before we arrived or something ridiculous, and now I can't find a way to pay and our number plate's not registered. So yeah, I don't know how we're going to get out. The original location of Billingsgate Market was on the banks of the Thames, just a stone's throw from the Tower of London. That part of the bank was a hive where people have traded goods since Anglo-Saxon times, which is before 1066, and yes, I did have to look that up. Edward III granted a charter in 1372 that prevented any other markets from opening within 6.6 miles of the City of London. Apparently that's how far you're expected to travel to get to a market, which this reaffirmed Billingsgate as one of the main London markets. A few years later, in 1400, Henry VI granted the right to collect tolls and customs at the three major London markets, one of which was named as Billingsgate. So it's definitely been trading as a proper London market for over 600 years. At that point, many things were traded at Billingsgate, including irons, salt, wine, as well as seafood. By the 16th century, it became London's principal seafood market, and then it continued to expand along that part of the Thames until it became the world's largest fish market, trading 120,000 tonnes a year, believed to be 5 times the size of the current market. A purpose-built market building was created in 1850, which was then knocked down just 25 years later, and this one that you can see here was built, and this was designed by Sir Horace Jones, who we met earlier at Smithfield. 100 years later, and the market was facing more problems, so it relocated to Docklands before Canary Wharf was actually built. This piece of land was owned by the Port of London Authority, who sold it to the Tower Hamlets Council, who then rent it to the Corporation of London for the nominal rent of a fish, normally 1 salmon paid each year. I wish I could pay my mortgage in salmon. Billingsgate Market is also part of this grand plan to move the London wholesale markets out to Dagenham, so again, if you want to see this one, get in there quick. So it's now like 4 AM and we're on our way to Billingsgate Fish Market, which has actually just opened. It's the latest of the markets. It's in the shadows of Canary Wharf. So we're going to go down there and have a look at the fish now. And on to Billingsgate Market, which opens from 4 AM to 8:30 AM from Monday to Saturday. However, you do need to get here early. The good stock does fly off the shelves quite early in the morning, and most traders are going to be closing up by 7 to 8 AM. Now, it's open on Saturday morning, which means you can get the night tube here, as it's only a 15-minute walk from Canary Wharf tube station. Otherwise, you can drive and parking costs £3. You could also get an Uber, but just one thing to bear in mind is that if you do buy anything, most Uber drivers don't want to collect from here because of the fact that you might be carrying a big bag of wet fish that's going to make their car stink. And on that note also, wear sturdy shoes and bear in mind that the floor is soaking wet, covered in dripping fish juice, and there's a chance your clothes might smell a little bit afterwards if you get any of that on you. When you get here, you're in the shadows of the haunted houses of the financial district, but inside it's a very bright, noisy and wet market hall with the traders set out in a grid. Saturday's the day when most of the window shoppers and tourists arrive, so it is very busy in the market on that day, and to be honest with you, I don't think the traders really like that day very much, and they're just trying to get rid of their stock before a 2-day break. It means it's not necessarily the best day to actually buy fish. I've visited here about 10 times over the last 15 years and found it's actually better to visit on another night if you want to buy some good fish. The selection and freshness is far better earlier in the week. We visited on a Friday this time and the quality of the fish was far nicer than when I went on the Saturday just a few weeks ago. And the seafood is absolutely incredible. Almost anything that lives in the water anywhere around the world can be found here from all corners of the oceans. It's like finding an alien world of weird creatures, and I'm talking about the fish, not the market traders, and it only comes alive in the dead of night. There are traders that specialise in shellfish, selling scallops from massive hand-dived wedges through to boxes of tiny little ones. Tropical specialists have freezers full of unfamiliar vast fish that have been frozen and shipped around the world. You'll also find huge trays of things like samphire, boxes of sea urchins, and a huge variety of oysters that are literally half the price of any fishmonger. You'll also find smoked and cured fishes, roes and caviars, literally anything you can want. All of the traders are very friendly and seem to prefer visitors who actually do want to know something about the seafood rather than those who are just there to take selfies. It's really interesting to hear why they are selling what they're selling or why they don't have a certain fish in stock. There's a lot of different factors that impact whether a certain fish can be landed, and it's not natural for us to have the same kind of fish available for sale every single day of the year. A word of warning, watch out for the porters whizzing around with their trolleys because they don't hang around and they're not really looking out for your safety. Everything does come in bulk, so you will need to buy entire sides of salmon or entire boxes of fish or 24 oysters at a time. And most of the fish will come intact, meaning that if you do want to stock up, you're going to have a day's worth of fishmongering when you get home. But overall, Billingsgate really is great fun to visit. It's one of the most compelling places to actually look, see something a bit weird, a bit unusual, and then also buy something too. That's been recording the whole time we were parked up. We've got 40 minutes of car park. So we're done at Billingsgate now as well, and it's 4:52 AM, and in fact I think the sun's going to come up any moment. And that was actually really good fun, and Billingsgate was a really good place to finish as well because it's definitely got the most fascinating stuff there. It's the best one out of all of them just to walk around and see what's available and look at the crazy wild fish that are there. And all the traders are really nice as well. In fact, chatted to quite a few of them. They're all really friendly and helpful as well. So there's no need to feel intimidated because these places can be a bit like that. Anyway, we're gonna go home now and we're gonna make some breakfast. So the sun's well and truly come up. I think it's time for a well-earned coffee. Now, let's go through all the prices of the different food available. And I'm also going to tell you everything you need to know if you want to visit any of these markets yourself. So first up, can you visit? Well, yes, you can. They might be wholesale markets and they're very industrial in their nature. However, anyone can turn up. And while there is security on the door, they're not going to ask you for anything. You can just walk straight in and have a look around. You do need to be careful of all of the porters and forklift trucks and things whizzing around because they're not going to make space for you. So just keep your wits about you. Also, it's worth wearing some sturdy shoes because at the different markets there are different hazards on the floor, whether that's just a grubby floor or in the case of Billingsgate, a lot of fish juice floating around. All of the markets are busiest during their first 2 to 3 hours, which means that if you want to see the most produce, you need to get there earlier in the evening. If you turn up very late, especially in the case of Billingsgate, then most of the traders will have closed up and gone home. Secondly, price. Now, I'm going to do a price comparison versus supermarkets at the end of this video, but you can save a lot of money shopping at these markets. Most of the traders accept contactless payments these days, although I think a lot of them do also prefer cash. And the prices are negotiable. Just because they've got a price advertised doesn't mean that's the price you have to pay. In fact, at the moment I started asking some questions about a certain fish, then the trader immediately offered me a 10% discount on it. So I think there is some negotiating room and I think you can haggle. And I've got to be honest, I reckon that if you take cash, you might be able to haggle a bit more than if you're paying by card. I mean, this is a market after all. Thirdly, quality and freshness. Now, the food here is really fresh. This is where food comes into London, then it goes out to your local greengrocer or local butcher or local fishmonger. So you're buying at the source. So you're always going to get super fresh food here. As for quality, what you'll find is there's an enormous variety. So you can buy low quality food, let's say like dredged scallops, which are kind of not very good for the environment, or you can buy hand dived scallops, and all of them will be available on one market stall. So when it comes to quality, it's very much up to you to choose what level you want to buy at. And I would always say, talk to the traders, ask them questions, because they seem to quite enjoy it when people actually are interested in the food they're selling. Don't be afraid just because they look a bit scary because they've got big ugly animals or like massive pallet loads. All of them generally want to have a chat and they want to tell you about the food they're selling. Fourthly, sustainability. Now, the traders don't necessarily have a lot of information about sustainability, so you might need to do your research before you go. If you're buying meat or fish, for instance, then it's definitely worth looking up on some websites what types are more sustainable. However, the traders can tell you what might be a common bycatch, i.e. something that there's a lot of surplus in the case of fish, or with meat, they might be able to tell you what area it's come from, what country it's come from, or even possibly what farm it's come from. So again, ask questions, but it's really worth doing your research before you go if you're concerned about the sustainability of the food you're buying. Fifthly, on-site cafes. Now, this might seem a strange thing to talk about, but basically all of the markets have cafes either in them or right around them that all of the traders use. In most cases, these largely just sell English breakfasts. There is one at Billingsgate, and I think it's called Billingsgate Cafe now, it used to be called Piggy's, and they famously do a scallop and bacon roll, which is quite nice. However, what I think is actually even nicer is if you visit any of these markets is buy some food from the traders, then go home and have a slap-up breakfast. For instance, we went home and we had some scallops on toast with poached eggs, and we also had some Alfonso mangoes with Greek yogurt. So we bought the mangoes from the market, we bought the scallops from the market, and that was a really beautiful slap-up breakfast, and then frankly had a snooze afterwards. So the on-site cafes aren't necessarily anything amazing. So how much did everything actually cost? Well, I'm going to go home now. I'm going to look at some supermarket prices and look at the prices I found in the market and do some comparisons. And remember, the prices that were being advertised might not be the price you pay. Like I said earlier, you can haggle as well. So the market could well be cheaper than these comparisons. So the answer to the question you've all been wondering, is it cheaper? Well, I've got some data here. So I've got a little spreadsheet I'm going to run through with prices of a bunch of different products that I saw at different markets to let you know what the costs are. And then I've compared them to available products in either the main supermarkets, or if I can't find the products in a supermarket, what it would cost to buy it from an online supplier. So starting off with Smithfields, we've got Scotch sirloin, which would be a massive piece at the market, was £11.50 per kilo, whereas in Little sirloin is £19.80 per kilo. So that's a massive 72% increase. Beef mince, when you have to buy 3 kilos, was £6.15 per kilo, whereas it's £6.55 in Asda, so that's only a 6.5% increase. Bacon in a 2.27 kilogram pack was £5.30 at the market, whereas The same bacon is £7.75 in Sainsbury's, so that's a 46% increase in price. And skinless chicken thighs in a 2.5 kilo pack were £5 a kilo, whereas in Tesco they're £6.20 a kilo, which is a 24% increase. So yeah, in general, meat was a lot cheaper at Smithfields. Moving on to New Spitalfields, 5 small Pakistani mangoes were £5, as in £1 each, whereas locally they're about £1.60 each, so that's a 60% increase. 5 kilograms of cherries worked out at £4 a kilo, whereas at Aldi they're £7.45 a kilo, so that's a massive 86% increase. A massive 10 kilogram tray of orange citrus fruit was £2.20 a kilogram at the market, whereas in Morrison's it's about £2.48, which is a 12% increase. It's worth noting that orange citrus fruit is also available quite cheap in some of the supermarkets, so you might need to compare what variety, because I'm not sure if it was like for like. And moving on to my favourite, Billingsgate, salmon fillets were £13 a kilo, whereas in Ocado they're £18.90 a kilo, so that's a massive 45% increase. Sri Lankan sashimi grade tuna was £22 per kilogram, and none of the supermarkets seem to sell that, but the closest I could find was Fine Foods Online, who sell it for £51.77 per kilo, which is a massive 135% increase in price. And at the market, you could also get small sea bass for £1 each, 10 for a tenner, and in Asda they sell for £2.25, so that's a massive 125% increase too. Overall, it looks like buying at the wholesale markets can save you a whole bunch of money, and that's especially true when it comes to fish.